What's up, y'all? Welcome to my channel. My name is Tammy Arrington. I'm the owner of Tammy A1 Consulting. I am a accredited student loan educator, and today we're going to talk about federal student loans. There's so much that's happening with federal student loans, just in general. There's so many changes, a lot that is happening. But now we know for those who are filing those complaints against their loan servicer or even the Department of Education, I'm going to show you guys what is actually going on with these complaints and how backlogged the Department of Education is. And then it looks like there's some upcoming changes with the way servicing may be happening as far as MOHELA being servicers for some borrowers. So let's go look at the information. Everything here is for educational purposes. Everything I'm going to talk about is for educational purposes only. This information is available to you just like it is to me. You can go to NBCnews.com to get the information. Also, we're going to look at a letter from Senator Warren that was sent to the Secretary of Education. This is all information that you can access yourself as well. So let's look at the information on NBC News. So it says the Education Department has a backlog of 27,000 complaints about student loans. 27,000 complaints. Now we know that if you have looked at the most recent status report, how backlogged the Department of Education is with income during repayment plan applications, also public service loan forgiveness applications, just the backlog in general. And with this current administration basically trimming the size of the workforce at the Department of Education, we already know they're already behind in workers in general. But let's look at this information. So the department disclosed that the pile of complaints an increase of about 11,000 since March in a recent letter to Senator Elizabeth Warren. A key office in the Department of Education responsible for fielding grievances about student loans has a backlog of more than 27,000 complaints after losing nearly two-thirds of its staff. The department revealed the pilot in a July 21st letter to Senator Elizabeth Warren. According to a copy provided to NBC News, the Federal Student Aid Ombudsman Office reveals hundreds of complaints a week, y'all, related to problems with student loan processing, repayments, and financial aid scams. The office closed just over 1,100 complaints in May, the most recent month with available data, and Warren wrote in a letter to Education Secretary Linda McMahon on Wednesday that this pace made her concerned that the backlog will continue to grow. The Trump administration is abandoning Americans who have been scammed by their student loan servicers or have problems with their loans. Warren said in a statement to NBC News, "I'm pushing Secretary McMahon because families across this country deserve answers." Let's go to the letter, okay? So we're going to click here and we're going to go to the letter that was sent to the Secretary of Education, Linda McMahon. Let me see if I can make it a little bit bigger to zoom in a little bit more. So this letter was sent on August 6th. So this is a recent letter, okay? So this letter was sent to the Secretary of Education, Linda McMahon. It was sent by Elizabeth Warren. So she says, "Dear Secretary McMahon, since the Trump administration took office, my office and the Department of Education have exchanged several letters regarding the department's relentless war on students and your dismantling of its educational programs. On June 10th, 2025, we met to discuss these issues in person, and you promised to provide complete responses to over 60 written questions about mass firings at the Department of Education, changes to student loan repayment, oversight of loan servicers, and more. Despite our vast differences of opinion on education policy, I appreciated several key commitments you made in our June meeting." So they met back in June, and there's information about that as well online. And if you don't follow Senator Warren, she's on YouTube and other platforms as well. But she actually spoke about this meeting. "You admitted to me that you would need congressional approval before moving the statutory responsibilities of ED to other agencies and that you had no legal authority to do so unilaterally. You committed not to offset the Social Security payments of elderly disabled student loan borrowers who default on their loans and asserted that you personally stepped in to block this senseless policy from going into effect. And finally, you told me that you would soon restore the income during repayment plan tracker, which ED took down in April 2025, which is still not back, to the FSA website, allowing borrowers to reliably track their progress toward debt relief. However, your latest letter dated July 21st, in response to the oversight letter I sent in advance of our June meeting, was severely lacking. In your response, you largely stuck to talking points and vague platitudes. You appear to have cherry-picked much of the data you did provide, indicating that ED is hiding information from Congress when data is inconvenient for its preferred." Now, this is where you can go back and read more information in the press release. All of those things you can go back and this is what I like when you go and you read documents, because they'll give you those links to go back to look at the information that's contained in the information that you're going over. Okay, you can go back and read those press releases. Okay, but where were we at? All right. They are hiding information from Congress when data is inconvenient for its preferred narratives. And while your response contains some new information and concessions about the department's programs, that is not enough. Finally, there are certain topics that ED has now repeatedly refused to disclose critical information on in response to multiple oversight investigations, including its decision-making processes surrounding the March 11 reduction in force, safeguards performance of ED's generative AI customer service chat box. I will be referring these matters to ED Office of Inspector General and Government Accountability Office in the coming weeks in this letter. However, I have highlighted and asked additional questions about other areas that demand further clarity from ED. So the senator, what she's now doing is asking even more things, and she wants even more clarity about what is actually going on. What is the process? What are the procedures behind everything that the Department of Education is doing? Because we see now there's a backlog. So something is going on, which, I mean, we already have an idea, not only just them withholding or hiding information on purpose, but also with, there's how many people are there to even get the work done. But even still, there's a job that has to be done. New findings and concessions in ED's July 21st, 2025 letter. Some information contained in your response letter was new or noteworthy. For example, you disclosed that the staff at ED's Office of the Ombudsman currently have a backlog of over 27,000 complaints from student loan borrowers, while a mere 1,122 complaints were closed during May 2025. It is unclear how many of those closed complaints were successfully resolved. If the Ombudsman Office continues to receive complaints at that rate at which it did between mid-March and late June of this year, the backlog will continue to grow by hundreds of complaints per month if ED does not begin resolving complaints significantly faster than it did in May. So even with the complaints that they completed, even with these completed back in May, there's 1,122, we don't even know if these were resolved complaints, if they just shut them down, sent out a generic response, or if things were actually taken care of. But by the sounds of it, if we have these massive amount of complaints, that means that something, they're not doing their jobs there. They're not accurately reviewing complaints and actually, resolving issues. You also disclosed that ED will be moving some of the Missouri Higher Education Authority, so MOHELA, federal student loan portfolio to other services later this year. A process that the Biden administration set into motion given MOHELA abysmal performance. You admitted that you were doing so to improve MOHELA's performance, and I appreciate your acknowledgement and action. To my knowledge, the first such admission from the Trump administration in response to MOHELA's failures to adequately serve borrowers. Now, mind you, y'all, whenever your student loans are sent to another servicer, so they can transfer student loan portfolios to different servicers. I mean, that's just part of the process, but you're supposed to be notified prior to this happening. So if you are someone who currently has MOHELA as a servicer, you should be checking your student aid account, checking your email, all of those things to make sure that when this transfer happens, that you are at least alerted, because we got a lot of borrowers who are going into repayment, who have actually started repayment, who've requested to have their student loans transferred from to be transferred into different repayment plans. And not only is the payment plan, going to change, but also your servicer could as well. And you got to know who you need to pay. So just be on the lookout for all of this, y'all. It's just absolutely wild. But let me keep going. Your letter also appears to rule out cutting ED's loan servicing budget by 60%, as DOGE reportedly recommended several months ago. And finally, you admitted that federal student loan servicers are contractually required to regularly communicate with borrowers about overdue payments. More links down here that you can go back and read over some other information that's obtained in this letter. Outstanding information needed from the Department of Education. So we know this is outstanding information, which means this is stuff they haven't provided. Unfortunately, your letter contained more omissions and evasive rhetoric than concrete information. For example, your response regarding FSA IDR payment counter was disappointingly vague before ED removed it from FSA's website in April 2025. The IDR payment counter was a critical resource set up by Biden administration that allowed borrowers to track their progress toward debt relief under PSLF or IDR. In addition to helping borrowers financially plan and make informed decisions regarding loan payment, the payment counter made it possible for borrowers to see which of their payments have been counted towards debt relief. It made it possible for them to hold servicers and FSA accountable if there was a discrepancy suggesting they were unlawfully denied relief due to servicer errors or mismanaged application backlogs. She goes into their June 10th meeting. You committed to restoring the payment counter and told me you would provide more information about when the department would do so. You also committed to disclosing whether the counter would be restored on a rolling basis for different borrowers or all at once. However, your letter neglects to provide information. It merely states that FSA is working with loan servicers to develop a solution to correctly display the payments and that the A-Surface injunction places certain limitations on this work. Yet you do not explain how long this would take, what those limitations are, how the restoration of the payment counts will be rolled out. And this is where she goes into asking those questions and what she wants a response. And at the end of this, you'll see that she has a date by which she wants the department to respond, okay? But you can go back and read those. Your letter also provides inadequate detail on how ED is addressing IDR backlog, which is preventing nearly $1.5 million from entering into repayment plans and making progress towards PSLF or IDR debt relief, and describing your plans to fix the backlog. You wrote that you are working closely with loan servicers to ensure applications are being processed in a timely manner. An extraordinary vague comment, especially given the high stakes of this issue for over 1 million borrowers. This is where she goes in to get more clarification on these things that the secretary has did. What do you consider to be a timely manner? And what's your process IDR application? And this is where she goes into wanting these responses, okay? Your letter also raises question about access to debt relief for many borrowers who become eligible each year through PSLF or IDR. Specifically claims that ED can only cancel loan balances in certain limited circumstances and cause debt cancellation a false promise. This dismissive rhetoric provokes concerns that you may fail to provide debt relief to borrowers in accordance and existing regulation and laws, despite your commitment to follow law and regulations. This is where she goes into more questions again. In ED's view, do the so-called limited circumstances in which ED is obligated to cancel loan balance encompass each of the following: debt relief after making IDR payments for 20 and 25 years, PSLF, total and permanent disability, closed school discharge, borrower defense repayment. And these are all regulatory programs, okay, that are in place under law. So when she asks these questions about that, we need to know when they're talking about limited circumstances, are you going to start making issues with, passing down those forgiveness or those cancellations of debt in accordance with law? And these are the programs that are in statute, okay? All right, so since January 2025, how many borrowers have received each of the following forms of debt relief? How many borrowers have been approved and how many have been denied? And mind you, y'all, when it comes to this information, like the Senator Warren has presented, you can actually request information from the Department of Education through the Freedom of Information Act. And mind you, there is a huge backlog. I did it myself. It's like 185 days that we have before they will provide any information regarding this. I sent off my Freedom of Information request for borrowers defense and still haven't got anything back. Okay, and that was been since end of June. Okay, so it's a mess. In addition, I have further questions regarding borrower delinquencies and defaults, which can block borrowers from accessing affordable mortgages, loans, and other forms of credit. It is especially critical to understand the current data on default. So these are just all things that she's trying to get answers on, more clarity on about what is happening and what is taking place. In a troubling lack of transparency, your letter withholds data on the distributing of firing across ED's offices that occurred during the rift. You claim to be unable to provide this information due to ongoing litigation, but you did not explain why the litigation prevents you from doing so or why it allows you to provide data on the distribution of deferred resignations, but not on the distribution of firings. Like, okay. And this is one thing that this administration have been doing, is utilizing the lawsuits to get themselves out of doing certain things, or to provide a justification of why they have done things. But it's absolutely wild. You're not mean in June, you told me that you could not move statutory functions of ED to other agencies without congressional approval. However, your letter only states that this administration will continue to perform all statutory duties while empowering families and teachers, without confirming whether it is ED who will be performing those duties, and then claims that ongoing litigation prevents you from further commenting. So this is what they're doing, just using litigation to not be able to, as their reasoning for not, providing clarity. Okay, so more questions. Please describe all the steps. If you continue to claim that you cannot answer questions on this topic due to ongoing litigation, why specifically does the litigation prevent you from doing so? This is the big question. Like, why? Why? Okay. Your letter, and because that's the same thing with the SAVE, when it came to the SAVE injunction, how they started encapsulating pay as you earn and income contingent repayment, citing that because of the SAVE plan or the injunction against the SAVE, that now they encapsulated these other plans. Like, what? But all right, your letter also raises further questions on the performance of federal student loan services. I'm glad you admit that servicers are contractually required to regularly communicate with borrowers regarding overdue payments. However, servicers have a lengthy track record of egregious errors and misconduct that result in grave financial harm. That word, grave financial harm, y'all, that is wild. That means like like forever financial harm to borrowers, including but not limited to poor or misleading communication? And what specific contractual requirements do you understand servicers to have regarding frequency of communication with borrowers in delinquent or default? Please provide specific examples from their contracts. More questions, okay? Then we got some other links here that you can go back and look at. Your letter says you are continuing to review the performance of all of our current contractors to improve customer service. Please provide more detail on how you are doing so and whether you impose penalties against contractors if they fail to meet basic customer service standards. We'll see. I have further questions regarding MOHELA. The performance of MOHELA, which manages the federal student loans of nearly 9 million borrowers. They have consistently exhibited atrocious customer service, even compared to all federal student loan servicers. They give them what she goes into more examples of how they have been exhibited that atrocious customer service. Please provide all customer service metrics that ED has collected, more details on how you are working with MOHELA, under what circumstances would you penalize MOHELA. And we know there was a $7+ million, this was during the Biden administration, where they withheld payments from MOHELA because of their handling of borrowers, okay? Your letter also raises further questions regarding Pell Grants, which are critical lifelines for low and middle income. House Republicans attempted to drastically cut Pell Grants in their proposed version of the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. Although thankfully these cuts were largely removed from the bill before final legislation was passed, I'm glad you're committed to administering Pell Grants as statute requires. It is worrying that you call the Pell Grants programs financially unsustainable without offering a solution, seemingly opening the door to harmful cuts to the program in the future. At the same time, you told the One Big Beautiful Bill Act expansion of Pell Grants to very short-term vocational programs, including fully online programs and for-profits with minimal guardrails. ED support for this policy is concerning because very short-term programs largely provide minimal, if any, actual benefits to students' future earnings and employability, and the quality standards that such programs must meet to become eligible, easily gained and manipulated, and sound good on paper but mean little. How do you propose addressing the alleged unsustainability nature of the Pell Grant program? Like, just more questions, okay? And then here's that information, go back and read. Your letter stated that colleges waited for years to participate in federal student aid under the previous administration. You claim that ED is now addressing this issue by cutting bureaucracy and streamlining processes without providing any concrete examples of how it is doing so. At the same time, you failed to offer a single number of statistics describing ED's progress towards more rapidly approving Title IV aid applications. Okay, more questions? More things about what the letter said. Let's keep going down, okay? Finally, your letter claimed you are creating efficiencies and improved processes to evaluate OCR complaints more effectively, and that certain OCR workflows have been reworked to more effectively target subject matter expertise to particular facts of this case. However, the only concrete example was the Title IX Special Investigation Teams, which appears to exist solely for the purpose of investigating schools that have allowed transgender athletes to join sports teams. They want more details, all right? The American people deserve to know your policies, how your policies are impacting services and programs that millions of students and families across the country rely upon. I request that you answer these questions and provide all the data requested in this letter by August 20th. So that is the time frame which the Senator of the United States has requested this information. So we'll see how they respond to this this request and this report. So we'll keep tracking it, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about it. But y'all, it's a lot that's happening with student loans, and I know there's so much. There's just so much, but yeah, we'll see how this all plays out. We'll see exactly how all of this plays out.